a big difference. The world has need of you, not a watered down version of you, not an inauthentic version of you, not the conditioned you, but you, the real you, the absolute you, you as you really are. I think the world is suffering from chronic epidemic level conformity. We have systems that are based on standardization. I mean, it's like the Industrial Revolution and mass production applied to people, which of course it was. I mean, the education system in the West was all built around preparing people to factories. They created actual famines to drive people out of the country, where on the farms, to get them to work in cities. I mean, artificial, taking food out of the country and that sort of thing. It's really horrific, and the effect has been that we don't really realize how much we lost, how much of our creativity and our ingenuity is being focused on channels that are not for the benefit of humanity as a whole. We need you. The world needs you. As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by technology, non-duality, true spirituality isn't a removal of oneself from the world. Yes, there are some people that do, and that's their path, right? Their path is maybe being in a monastery or an ashram, or just in solitude for a while. I live a very solitary life. But it isn't about, that isn't the app, because your mind's going to go with you. You can go into the monastery, but your mind's still going to be there. It's still going to be, when we're talking about leaving the world, renouncing the world, we're talking about renouncing the influence it has on us, which is deep. You hear me talk all the time about conditioning and programming and energetic assumptions and all of these things, that aren't you. They were programmed into you. They were conditioned into you, and it seems to be okay, right? I mean, this has always been going on, but when human beings were closely tied to nature, we were really in the rhythm of nature, like plants and animals. There was room for the individuality, right? It was this balance. It was this flow between my individual abilities and the needs of the group as a whole. Well, all of that got pushed aside, and so the renunciation is simply renouncing that in you which is not authentically you, and that's the most important thing. That's what we have to get. That's what non-duality is all about. It's peeling away everything that isn't you, that gets to your absolute authentic self. And the authentic self is not this big void. Somebody just said something. Oh my God, did I lose the sound again? It's not a big void. It's not empty in the sense that there's nothing there. The self, the true self, the reality of the self, Buddha nature, or the I am, is the infinite theme, the inexhaustible source of everything. And everything is a manifestation of that. So what that means is that it isn't a denial of your human life. It's a celebration of it. It means that your human life has enormous value and significance, that it manifests something about the reality of being that can only be manifested in that way. You are an aspect of the reality of the self that can only be known as you. So you are at once, at the same time, you're this unique, wonderful individuality, and you are the whole simultaneously. It's hard to fathom it. but you are the whole. The self is consciousness. The manifestation of the self is individuality and the universe. I mean, every blade of grass is different. Every blade of grass is unique. Every bug, every snowflake, every drop of water. And the drop of water contains a universe of little tiny critters and stuff running around. I mean, it's unfathomable. The incredible dynamism of the self, and the self doesn't. When a song happens, is created or played in a million different ways, music doesn't get stuck in that song, right? Oh, let me out, right? It is manifested in the song, but is never stuck there. The artist creates the beautiful painting, but they're not stuck in the painting. The painting is a reflection of them, and we can still know the character and quality of a Beethoven or a Jimi Hendrix by the fact that we can still listen to that music. We can hear them, but we can also hear the self of all, that which manifests itself in limitless individualities. And so the non-dual self-inquiry is an inquiry into the true nature of the self, which automatically reflects itself in the true nature of the human being, the true value of you as you, not as anybody else, not your market value, the skills you picked up in college that that the economy is going to use or not, and hopefully it stays in vogue long enough that you make a living for your lifetime. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I was at the pinnacle. I was kind of the upper crust of programmers at one time, doing these very elaborate systems, and now I'm completely lost. I mean, it's just flown by me, everything that's going on now. And so, boom, nothing, right? I mean, I can still, make stuff happen on computers. I'm not intimidated by them, but it's nothing like before. This is the ups and downs of it. And so your value is your uniqueness. It's you. The more you are yourself, the more you clear away that which is not you, the more you release and heal the old traumas and wounds going back lifetimes, the more you show up, and you begin to realize that the manifest you, this person in your life and your job and the things you do and the people you're with, and the infinite self are one. They're one and the same. It's the infinite universe reflected in the single thing. The entire universe reflected in a flower, a single flower. It's all there. The entire nature of the self is reflected in every single individuality. The value of the human being is we get to be self-aware of that. We get to look at the universe and go, wow, what a gift that is. And so, I do this to peel away what isn't you, so that you can realize that which is you. You can stop the struggle of trying to be something you're not. Now, the only difficult part of it is we've all been trained that we're supposed to be like XYZ, and there's the thing you're supposed to be like. And you're not that, so you got to keep trying to get there. You're broken and you need to be fixed. And you've heard me say it a million times, you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with you. Right? You simply have to dispose of that which is not you and start trying to make a perfect version of you. You're already perfect. You don't need version 2. You don't need an upgrade. There's nothing wrong with you as you are. But we don't know ourselves as we are. We think of ourselves in terms of what we are not. And non-dual self-inquiry is going straight to the heart of that and removing everything that isn't you, so that you can discover the incredible, wonderful, beautiful, extraordinary, breathtaking being that you actually are. I think I'll let it go at that, and go back and say hello to everybody. Yes. Even our religions tell you you're horrible. You're a sinner. Right? You're just unworthy of God's love. You are God's love. God so loved the world, he made you. Hello, Rosario. Hello, Teresa. And in damp, dark southeast London. Yeah, it's damp and dark here too. It rained all night. It's very cold here. Yeah, I've been cold. I've got a blanket on my feet. I've got a little space heater over here. I've got these lights on me. I think I'll be able to keep it together for a bit here. There's Mary. Hello, Mary. Trying to make your light shine. Yes, you can't help it. It is shining. Your light is shining. The problem isn't that it isn't shining. The problem is you don't see it. Look around. Everyone you see is the Lord. Mary, Ava in Poland, Virginia in Connecticut, Robbie, Romania, Ursula, Madeira Island. So good to know that everyone got that my Euro friends got the times right. I did send out the email, well, last week. I didn't send it out today. Hello, Scott. Hello, David and Elaine. Good to see you guys. Anthony, hello, GP and all from Adelaide. Hello, Anthony. In Adelaide, early in the morning there. Scott, GP, while in this place where a separate I still is believed to exist, where the world is not made of matter, a world of illusion made of consciousness, how can I understand what I should care about if I'm just watching, not making decisions about doing? If I am in a movie theater allowing a show to play out, I have no input or control, maybe some sympathy for the characters, but even they are not real, nothing to do, let go on, the movie's world go up in flames and people starve and kill each other. Maybe these destructive situations are just a natural part of me, like my cells being replaced. Well, this is a hard question and it's something everybody has to come to terms with. But I caution you about jumping into the whole thing about the world is an illusion, and the separate I. Self-inquiry, non-dual self-inquiry starts with not this, not that. It starts with what I am not. Until that has been really seen, the world as an illusion cannot be understood. It's going to be very confusing. And the mind, that sense of being a person, is still going to try to make decisions based on that. Well, that's not an illusion. But the thing is that the world isn't an illusion. The I is. The world is the self. The world is the reality. We just think of it as in its current state because we think of ourselves in that current state. If I am a separate self, then there's going to be a world, and it's going to be a world of chaos and difficulty and conflicting egos and everything that we are seeing. So the inner work is dismantling that I and not worrying about the world. Now, by not worrying about it, I mean not taking it in as a mission that somehow I have to solve. The inquiry itself is going to solve it. That is the way we release and heal. And then, of course, as a human being, wherever you can lend a hand, you lend a hand. Wherever you can speak the truth to power, you speak the truth to power. Wherever there is access to you, any kind of platform to comment about things or groups you can belong to, voting and things like that, any way in which you can participate to the degree you can, we should do. Of course we should do that. We should participate fully, but bring yourself to it. Bring an awakened being to it, right? You say, while in this place where a separate I is still believed to exist. Right? I actually don't think that's 100% true for you. I think you have seen through it. But what you haven't seen is that the activity of this false sense of I is the conditioned self. It is the conditioning going on. There is no I that is separate. There's a belief that is part of the conditioning and programming that we all received. And even when you get it to a certain degree, have some kind of an awakening, even a big one, the conditioning continues, right? You've got lifetimes of this built up. They're very deep-seated, they call vasanas or samskaras, that simply we patiently, gently, earnestly need to simply be so loving and compassionate towards ourselves that we provide the space for all of these to come up and those final seeds to finally be burned so they never take root and grow again. This is part of coming to understand, and it took me a long time. I didn't get this at first. I was just stuck in the absolute, right? It was wonderful, right? And yet things kept going wrong in life. I was struggling with also the world is an illusion, the world is an illusion. And I eventually found I couldn't work it out that way. I had to really completely dismantle that sense of I. And with that goes all the beliefs about the world, all your conflicts with the world, all of our fears about the world. And we then come in, we become that peace that the world is so desperate to find. You are that. And that's what the world needs. It needs you as peace. And that touches everyone. That has a healing effect in no matter what you happen to be doing. If you're going to the grocery store, putting gas in your car, without complaining about the price, that has a healing effect that spreads. You are connected to everything. Right? And so you just be willing to simply engage with what is here in front of you right now. There are feelings, discomforts, and things that are there. Don't cling to any kind of ideas about what spirituality is, what non-duality is, what enlightenment is, any of that. Just put all of it aside and simply be present right now with whatever happens to be there, right? Including the difficulties and stuff going on in the world. Okay, it's here. I know it's not right, but it's here, right? For whatever reason, right? And I'm striving to see no separate self at all, not just me, but them, the ones who are doing horrible things. Can I see God in them? Whoa, how do I do that? Because if I'm not a separate self, neither are they. And so there's this belief of a separate self projected on others as well as projected onto ourselves. The world is not made of matter. It is of consciousness. And as consciousness, the world is real, right? It was Shankar said, the world is an illusion. Only Brahman is real. Brahman is the world. The illusion has been projected on what we call the world. The world as the self is real. The world as a separate thing made out of matter, coming into existence 3.8 billion years ago, that is an illusion, right? It is an idea projected on what is actually there. The mirage in the desert, right? The mirage isn't there. The desert is. The thirst is. Everything that goes along with it. It is. So, in a sense, yes, okay. What power do you have to change the movie? None. So you say, okay, I have to, if I should get some power to be able to positively influence, I will use that. But in the meantime, it's just, this is the way it's unfolding, and maybe this is the way it has to unfold. I have to say that this is the way it has to unfold because that's the way it's unfolding. When I look at it from the point of view of universal consciousness, of the consciousness of humanity as a whole, I see reflected in the world around me exactly what I have experienced in my own self. This conflict between the separate sense of self, the devilish ego, that which works for itself and its own interests, and can get all into a pathological narcissism, right? And this insight into who I really am. And this struggle of trying to reconcile the two. I mean, Christ had the struggle. That's what the temptations in the wilderness were. And the Garden of Gethsemane was struggling with exactly this. Until he finally surrendered. He simply surrendered to it. It's finished. And into thy hands I commit my spirit. I don't know what the hell to do. Yeah. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And can you feel the spirit of that? It's not a denial of the world. It's not a pushing away of it. Buddha never pushed the world away. None of the sages did. They engaged in it. They taught it. And lived it, and approached everything and everyone with the most tender love and compassion. So where you can make a difference, make a difference. Where you can't, simply surrender it. Give it up to God. Give it up to the self, however you conceive it to be. And yes, the destructiveness we are seeing is the egoic mind becoming obvious. It is obvious that hate will only breed self-destruction. Love must and is the answer. And that will be universally accepted. Right? And if it isn't, we will wipe ourselves out, and we deserve to be wiped out. Even in our own lives, we oftentimes have to hit rock bottom. We have to be pushed to the wall. We have to run out of moves. Humanity is running out of moves. But it's also waking up. You can see it. You can see its effects everywhere. The forces of darkness, the ruling elite, right? Their power hangs on a thread. And one of these days, it's just going to pop. Right? When it does, we need to be there with all the love and compassion we can muster, because the world is going to need it. It's not going to know where to turn. But we do know where to turn. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for that very heartfelt question. It means a lot. Hello, Dorte in Denmark, John in Ireland, Dale in Boston. Okay, now I got to skip all the things where everybody was telling me everything was messed up. Proof known as real. Okay, let me go back all the way down to the bottom. It looks like I'm still working. Okay, good. Good. Yay. All right. Yeah. When it starts looping like that, it's creepy. Even if it's a good word, right? It's creepy. And that's the robot. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Yay, you're back. Okay, I'm back. There's me. Hello, me 23. I totally agree. Everyone is so conformed to the system. Very naive, as you have told me before, GP. Yes. Be yourself. Find out what it is that is. Find out who you really are. Hello, Nazarene. So good to see you. Let's see. There's Playa. Nice to finally see and hear you. What do you believe are the biggest misunderstandings about non-duality? That non-duality and duality aren't the same thing. That somehow it denies or pushes away or diminishes human life. And so it becomes this attempt to transcend by ignoring, and often and can become a spiritual bypass or a metaphysical end run. And yeah, and it's a very simple practice. Who am I really? Right? I mean, Ramana, it was so simple the way he put it. Right? You look at your thoughts. You can see your thoughts. So you can't be the thought. You must be something essentially different than a thought. The same with my feelings. The same with my sensations, memories. Every experience I have, I am here looking at it. So no matter what happens, no matter what thought comes up, I can ask, to whom is this thought appearing? To me. Who am I? Who is the one that it's appearing to? So it's a thought. So it's not me. This is the inward path. This is the Vedantic path. This is the not this, not that path. Right? This is not, we're not yet talking about the oneness of all things. This way has to go first. This is, from here, the question, who am I, does not risk being answered by some concept or some idea. Even the great concepts and ideas, like, sorry, I'm getting chilled again. I got to put my blanket on. Even the great concepts like pure consciousness or Buddha nature or Christ consciousness or the great I am, they remain just concepts, right? So, okay, pure consciousness, it's a thought, it has some meaning to it, but who's looking at that thought? Who's aware of that thought? They say, well, pure consciousness is. Yeah, okay, but that's just another thought. I want to know me without thoughts. Who am I without a thought? Right? And see, this isn't complicated. It's not even really a practice. It's an inquiry. It's an exploration. No, meditation and concentration and tapping and the kind of inner work that relieves suffering and traumas and that sort of thing is not incompatible with it. Right? Matter of fact, I use it a lot to help get people to a place where there's not so much inner conflict that one can actually slow down and look and see and ask that question. Oops, it froze there for a second. And ask that question, who are you? Who am I? No, I'm not that. Yeah, even pure consciousness. I'm not going to let any concept in. Enlightenment, I'm not going to let any concept in. No concept at all, because it's appearing to me. So the only answer to the question, who am I, must be the real you. Self-realization is the only thing that can answer that question, because everything else is an appearance to you. And this is the deep meaning of non-duality, knowing yourself directly, not as one thing knows another. That's the Vedantic. Once you do that, you can turn around to see that it's all you. Right? But not until this is clear. So that's probably a little bit more than you wanted, plan, but that's the biggest, to me, that's probably the biggest misunderstanding. And Teresa says, finding society very uncomfortable these days. Yes, we are finding our collective ego uncomfortable. And you're drawn to this kind of inner inquiry because our own egos became uncomfortable. We began to not be able to tolerate ourselves, right? Stuff coming up and we didn't know, we thought we were over it, right? Things that are hurting our relationships, hurting our work, hurting ourselves. These things are coming. What in the world? And I almost feel compelled to do it. I'm tired of the ego. I am tired of the ego. Let's see. And that's all that's being reflected around the whole world right now. It is the ego on steroids. The serpent in the garden has become the red dragon in the sky. Biblical references for those of you who get it. Spartacus is in a Lithuanian forest. Wow, beautiful. Roberto, back in Madrid. All right, Roberto. Barbara in Sweden. There's Mary. GP. Thank you, GP. And again, great introduction. Need to hear this so much. Yes. Our religions so belittle us. You're not important. Look, if you are so insignificant that God could throw you into eternity into hell for eternity, then you have no value. Then you were just extraneous. You're expendable. You're an extra party made, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Right? But even if that were the case, a compassionate God would just make you not exist, not punish you forever. It's insane. It is just insane. Carl, interesting intro, G. Since I've practiced more being and living less from my conditioned selves, I was drawn hugely from the outside world, including friends, family. I now feel less needed. Ironic? Yes. Yes, it is. Less needed and less needy, right? I want to be needed, right? I need to be needed. No, man, you don't. You don't need to be needed, right? And the withdrawal is quite natural. It's very natural to just not be engaged anymore with the stuff that simply isn't all that interested. The level of conversation and the level of the things that interest so many people just isn't interesting to you. Facts is facts, right? It just isn't, and of course you're going to gravitate away from it, and there'll be just a much more, just much more enjoyment of your own company, right? Which again doesn't rule out relationships. The thing is that the relationships, the ones you have, there probably won't be as many of them, but they'll be a lot deeper. They'll be a lot more intimate. They'll be really genuine. These will be people who will be aiding you on your path. They'll be your sangha. People who are contributing to your spiritual growth, to the ever expanding wisdom that comes with exploring this territory, and the world will become less frightening, right? And because you'll understand it, you'll see what's going on. You'll see that it has to be this way. This is inevitable. This is what we're going through now is as I said it before, this is not just a transition of a culture, that's going to reestablish itself. It is not even the transition of an empire or an economic system, right? This is the end of a 12,000 year cycle. This is a state of mind and being that has evolved over 12,000 years, and it's coming to an end. This is an epoch shift that we're experiencing. That was what was really symbolized by the prophecies of the end of the world and the end of days, and even the Mayan calendar, which simply ran out, right? It was, oh my God, 2012. I remember people just getting all panicked about that. This is the end of the cycle. After this, it's like another big bang. We don't know. We don't know. But many have said that this is the beginning of a cycle that is, well, we can't even imagine what it'd be like. any more than our hunter-gatherer relatives could imagine what living in New York City would be like. No, we couldn't do it. We will be, the current state of humanity will seem to our progenitors, our offspring, as primitive as Neanderthals. They're going to be surprised. Oh, they were pretty intelligent. How come they did such stupid things all the time? We are going to look. It's just going to blow past what we now know. But remember that is just the progress of the unfoldment of life. You are life itself. You never end. This is all an unfoldment of the self, a revealing of the self. So you are needed, right? Not in the way you would think you are. You are needed as the real you. That is how you are needed. And for many, the real you will not be acceptable. They want you to remain the way you were. Families tend to be like that. Rarely they go, oh, look, changed their name to Siddhartha, and they're living in an ashram. This is wonderful. Most no. It's like, what's the matter with you? You're crazy. Go back to school. They're not going to be able to accept this kind of a journey. Some will, right? But you'll find those who do, and you'll need them, and they will need you. And that the need will be different, though. It will be quite different. Okay. I can see myself better. I can see the questions better. I'm needed by my family in a very different way. I'm not needed anymore. When my kids were little, boy, I was everything, right? I did absolutely everything. I was there. Without them, without me, they didn't survive. And now I'm not needed in that way at all. I am completely obsolete, extraneous, right? Now it's like, Dad, can you come tomorrow? I gotta do something, and can you take Audrey? Or yeah. Now it's that kind of, and just kind of being a presence, a sense of continuity, and the like. But I know it's going to end. Needs always shift. Right? And at some point, what I've done will live after, but this form will collapse. But the self that animates this form isn't going anywhere. It's animating that form too. Mary says, yes, especially the religions. Yes, especially the religions. Yes, they. Boy, did they get off the mark. Jennifer, when you understand there's nothing wrong, yet others see something so differently they want to call help for you. Is there a way to help them understand? All my responses strike confusion. No, well, you can't make them understand, no. But learn to be wise, right? Cast ye not your pearls before swine, right? They just don't get it, right? If they don't get it, drop down to some level that they do. And that may just be an absolutely boring, useless, meaningless conversation. And, you won't be hanging out with them much. But everybody responds to compassionate love. It doesn't have to be the words, right? If there's just a compassionate love, wherever you can give it, even if it feels awkward and uncomfortable, and you have absolutely nothing to say to each other, be love, be peace, right? And just notice if you say something that strikes confusion, just either back off, take the conversation in a different direction, and just say, does that confuse you? You think I need help? And you may actually find a door open to have a really sweet and intimate conversation, and it doesn't have to get into, you always have to speak to people where they are. Simple as that. Just do that, and you'll get better and better and better at it. This is what Buddha meant by the skillful means. Right? Be skillful, right? And acquire skills, right? So that you can speak completely from your heart at the level that they can understand. Right? And nobody did that better than the Buddha. Nobody did it better than the Buddha. Just absolutely amazing, all day, every day, to every different level. And you could see it in the sutras and the stories about him. About, you talk when people about meditating, concentrating, and watching your breath, and then another time he put all of that away. No, that's not at all necessary for you. Even to in the Heart Sutra, where they transcend all of the Buddha's teachings, show that all of it was just a skillful means. And so, yeah, let yourself be the vehicle. Remember, it's not you with an understanding that's trying to speak to somebody. Don't make a separate self there that has gained some wisdom or wise knowledge and is sharing it. Right? The self is speaking always through you. So it is the self speaking. And not, I don't even want to say through you, because there's no you. It's just the self speaking. It's the self asking the question. It's the self answering the question. There's no intermediary, right? There's nobody here that's being inspired. There's only the inspiration, right? So it is the self that moves the lips and the fingers and everything. It's not like there's somebody who is inspired. Any more that there's somebody in the radio actually singing the song. The radio is just going through it. That's what this is. And the radio doesn't know anything about it. This body doesn't know what it's being used for. It doesn't care. It's just a collection of a bunch of little teeny tiny critters all dancing together to make this walking zoo. Thank you, Jennifer. Me 23. Egle, oh, so good to see you. Good to be here. Edvard, hey GP, any tips on dealing with trauma of not feeling safe around other people? I've been anxious since I was very young and come to realize that I closed my heart to protect myself, and that it added to the anxiety. Well, yes, you didn't close your heart. That's kind of a figure of speech, and it leaves the wrong impression. You cordoned the heart off, right? You didn't close it. It's wide open, but it's in a little room, right? There's nothing wrong with your heart, right? Matter of fact, the very fact that you're aware that you don't feel safe around people and you feel like you need to protect yourself means you don't want to do that anymore. Your heart's open and it's saying, hey, come on, let's go. I want to play, right? So first off, notice that's really a great sign. Your open heart is pushing now to remove some of the blocks and that were put there by the trauma, right? The trauma was that you didn't feel safe because you weren't, right? Traumas are not imaginary. They happen in children so much because children we're totally vulnerable as kids, right? For 10, 12, 15 years, we can't survive without our needs, without somebody else taking care of our needs. We can't, right? These days it's older. I mean, if a hunter-gatherer, maybe around puberty or so, you could do it. 10 years old, you could probably make it, but the tribe didn't need that, right? And so the anxiety came because you were not safe. Right? That's the first thing to grasp. It was there What is anxiety but a level of alertness, right? Fear always going in the body, right, at a low level, to be alert because you didn't know where the danger was going to come from anywhere, any minute. and so you had to walk on eggshells and be prepared, and it was safer to just avoid people altogether. I had the same thing. I was 15 years old. The first time I got stoned is the first time I realized, my God, I have been tense my entire life. Needless to say, it made drugs a good friend of mine, which created its own problems later. But I had no idea. I had no idea what it felt like to be relaxed. It was just constant tension. And I didn't withdraw from people. I became a performer, which is another way of doing it, right? So that there's always a scripted, you're always playing a character. But that's how I avoided people. So the absence of safety was real, right? And the human nervous system of the child, it cannot impute any kind of guilt or responsibility to the parents, because they're gods. Everything depends on them. Therefore, it must be my fault. And it just clams down. It just finds whatever behavior it possibly can in order to keep you alive. Right? And so, so that's the first thing you have to realize, that it's not a problem. It is the solution that your nervous system found, right? And it is now sitting in a place. See, what it happens as a child is because it gets programmed into us as automatic behaviors, right? Later on, thoughts come and ideas, and we get images of ourselves, but they're all based on these programmed response, this level of conditioning that's there before language or words or anything. It's energetic. It is not linguistic. Right? And so it becomes automated, and as part of that process, the nervous system itself learns, makes assumptions about the nature of reality, the nature of the world, and it concludes the world is not safe, other people are not safe, and until the inner environment shifts to the point where it can feel some degree of safety, it will stay in that position. And you might not even be aware of it. Right? Matter of fact, I'm shy. I don't like other people. Right? I don't feel safe around people. I don't want to be around people. You won't even realize that what's going on this level. Right? But of course, even recognizing I don't feel safe around people, and with the sense that maybe there's something wrong, maybe there's something that could be done about that, that's an opening. Because otherwise you wouldn't even know it was happening. You'd be like a rescue dog, right? You'd be like a trained animal. Right? But now you do know. So what has to happen? When we say, okay, I got this trauma and I've got to get rid of it, it's like you're telling the nervous system to drop the very thing that's protecting you. What's it going to do? Are you kidding? You're crazy, Edward. Jesus, Edward, now we got to protect you from you. And this is what happens. We unwittingly perpetuate the unsafe environment that was assumed to be was the reality, then later became assumed to be the reality. And all of our attempts at self-improvement and self-help and all of these things, as well-intentioned as they are, they in fact reinforce the assumption that it's not safe to be me. It is not safe to be me. I got to fix me. And if I'm fixed and I can do all these things and I get all the help, then it'll be okay. Right? No. All you're doing is conveying exactly the same thing to the nervous system that it has been getting your whole life. So how do you feel safe? How do you begin to learn how to feel safe? Well, the first thing you do is you begin to simply let yourself feel what you're feeling. Whatever feeling is there, you allow it. This is the heart of inner reconciliation. It's a whole process that I teach. This is what I use EFT for, to help create the inner environment of safety. And that is it, because the nervous system is always and only adapting to whatever environment it's in. And if that not being safe around people is there, it's because the inner environment is still unsafe for it, right? So you don't have to worry about getting rid of a trauma or fixing anything or healing. You don't have to worry about any of that at all. All you have to do is change the environment. It'll do the rest, because that's all it does, is adapt. That's all it does. It's the most highly adaptable thing there is. And so recognize that you are, without knowing it, not being safe for yourself. And now you discover how you're doing that and how to shift that so you move into a place where you are totally self-accepting. Little by little, doesn't happen all at once. But the other term for that is unconditional love. Love without conditions. Right? You don't have to, there's no prerequisites you have to hit. You are lovable and loved right now. And everything you're feeling is perfectly natural. Everything can be allowed to be felt, even when it's uncomfortable. And that's how you do it. Like I say, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes some time, because it's been totally embodied in the entire system for your whole life, lifetimes really. Which is why I have a bunch of courses on it, and I teach about it, and it's the heart and soul of everything that I teach. On the practical level, right? It's the practical implementation of unconditional love and compassion. Its roots are in the understanding that your true being, your true self, was never conditioned in the first place. That was the insight, the revelation that came to me when I was 19. It took decades to figure out all the rest of it, and the conditioning and everything and all of that stuff and work. But that realization that the real you has never been touched. It's never been conditioned. And it's still there in its original, pure innocence. It's a matter of simply harmonizing with that and retraining the nervous system like you would retrain a rescue dog, right? Through love. Does that help, Edward? Gosh, I hope so. At last, okay. That's a tongue twister for me. The mind and body appear agitated. What is the lesson that needs to be seen in this? Drop the intention to get rid of the agitation and put all of your attention on the actual feeling itself. If the mind and body are agitated, well, pay more attention to the body, because the mind will have a bunch of reasons. The mind is reacting to the agitation, right? Creating ideas on how do I get out of it, and how do I fix it, and how do I change it? And of course, it doesn't have any answer to those questions, which simply stimulates more agitation. Okay? It's a stress spiral. And so just doing that, right, and just dropping the intention to fix it, which seems like, what? I want to, of course, we want to heal, right? But just, I'm going to fix this, right? Whatever it is the body's holding on to, it's going to hold on tighter, right? So instead, you drop that intention and you go, okay, the body is in a state of agitation right now. Okay, I'm just going to feel it. I'm just going to be with it. Ask, is there something you want to say? What are you protecting me from? Right? But now you're asking the agitated energy, not the mind. The mind doesn't know. The only one that knows is the agitated energy. It knows why it's there, right? It may not be able to speak in words, right? The way a rescue dog, it's my favorite analogy these days. It can't speak in words what it's feeling, right? But you can tell simply by being in. What do you do with the rescue dog? You're with it. You pet it, right? If it'll let you, you earn its trust, and eventually it begins to respond. It begins to open up. It begins to get closer, right? you learn how to be present with it. But notice, you want the dog to be better, of course, right? You want it to be full and loving and happy and all that. But you don't set out with okay, I got to fix this, right? It's a real problem. It's, oh, no, of course we want it to be liberated. We want it to be free, of course. And this is the same thing with this. I want to be free of this agitation. How do I become free of the agitation? I have to satisfy whatever need it is in there that feels it needs to be agitated. How do you do that? Through love. And what's the practical application of that love? Being present and listening. Like any relationship with anybody in your life, the healing of a relationship starts with a willingness to simply be present and listen. Not thinking about what we're going to say in return, but really listening. And then engaging. Okay, what are you protecting me from? And notice, you might feel some resistance. I don't want to feel this. And you just, well, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this agitation. That's true, right? But it's here, so I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to inquire into it. Okay, why are you here? And when you're doing that, it'll pop up. You go, okay, I'm not getting an answer. And then just notice that the intention to fix it is back, right? It's subtle. It keeps creeping in. You go, okay, well, I'm just going to keep listening, right? What else am I going to do? I'm just going to keep listening, right? I don't know what the answer is, and I want to be free, and it wants to be free. I assume my body wants to be free of this as well. So let's just, I'm just going to remain present and have no time limit on it, right? There's not, okay, we're out of time now. I'm not going to be present anymore. I mean, there's no time limit on this, right? You have to simply be willing to be with it as long as it takes. I watched some videos on stories of rescue animals. Some are really extreme, and some it took. There was one. It was so abused that it was kept chained up the whole time, and it was like 100 pounds overweight. Right, so it could barely move. Its legs and it took a year, but of just love, and I worked with it, and little by little, and now it's bounding around at its right weight. It took a year, right? So it becomes. You can see how subtly we commit to this in order to get the result, right? And as long as that's there, we're going to have one eye. We're going to have one eye on the result. And judging this. Okay? As long as it's here, that's what's going to happen. So forget the results. It is all about simply being present no matter what. And you forget the results. There's no attachment to the outcome. This is karma yoga, by the way. It's actually a formal practice of everything in life, doing everything in life with no attachment to the outcome of the results. You give that over to God. Does that help? Atlassius? Robbie, I know there is the sin of greed when trying to reach outside ourselves to make us feel better, but can we use outside things as resources to uplift us? At least until we can rely on ourselves fully? Of course. Of course. This is not a religion, right? This is not punitive or prescriptive, right? There are no 10 commandments here, right? Live your life as you live your life, doing whatever it is you're doing in whatever way that you want to do it, okay? Don't change anything, but notice, just watch, look, see, notice, oh, I'm really investing. I've got this discomfort in me. I've got this anxiousness, or where's this coming from? Oh, and you'll notice, oh, I've really gotten dependent on the idea that if I get this thing, everything's going to be better. Ah, I see. Well, it doesn't mean you shouldn't want the thing, right? And it doesn't mean that having something or coming into your life isn't going to improve it. Yeah, if you won the lottery, you'd have a different life. Absolutely. Would it make you happier? No, it will not. Will it make you more who you are? Absolutely not. It will bring what it brings. Right? Understanding that, we can let the desire be there and even act on it without attachment. Right? Because there's always going to be desires. Every day is a desire, right? Desires are there all the time. They come and go all the time. They're supposed to. That's what they do, right? And so, there's a lot of things I love to watch. I love to watch some. I watched some movies on cats the other day, and it was one of the ways I actually broke through to the cat I was cat sitting, because he wouldn't come near me. And I was watching a documentary, and all of a sudden he comes in the room, sits down, looking at all the cats. And I learned how I could, if I blink slow, that a slow blink, I always thought cats were all just lazy. They're just kind of doing this, but it actually has meaning. So I started blinking at him slowly. And he'd look. That night he was up on my bed. We were buds after that, right? So uplifting, quite uplifting, right? I like documentaries. I like historical stuff. It's wonderful, right? And it all ended up uplifts me. When it's over, it's over, right? I don't look to it for anything for me. Right? It's just, I'm just experiencing and enjoying life as it is, right? So yeah. So this isn't renunciation of the world. It's a renunciation of dependency on it, of attachment to it, right? Of hoping that which is constantly changing will somehow stop changing, right? Or that I will be made happy or complete or whole by something that I get. And you can tell that that has subtly entered in, because there'll be a discontent. Right? There can be desire without discontent. What? Yes. The feeling of desire becomes discontent when the belief is there that I need this in some way. If that belief isn't there, there's just the energy of desire, and you feel it, and it moves, and all life is moved by the energy of desire. So the sin of greed is simply looking for satisfaction where it isn't. Looking for stuff where it doesn't exist. Trying to get something out of something that it doesn't have. That's greed. Simple as that. And it feeds desire. The desire gets fulfilled, and it seems to fulfill the idea that, oh, happiness. So this is the way. And so whenever it's fulfilled, we know happiness, and in between we know suffering. And for a lot of people, and of course these days it gets even harder and harder to fulfill those desires. Okay? And there's no guarantee there's certainly no guarantee by the amount of wealth you have that you're going to be happier. The opposite is, if that were true, that the multi-billionaires should be so blissed out they can't do anything. They'd be dysfunctional. But they're not. They want more because they're not happy. Right? It hasn't satisfied. Power, not having their own set of rules. They don't have to obey the rules the rest of us do, and they're not happy. They want more. They want more. They want more. They want more. That's greed on steroids. But whenever I reach for something thinking that it's going to bring me happiness, completeness, wholeness, a sense of well-being, love, compassion, then I then I am in it. I can feel that as the discontent. And so a lot of the practice that we engage with is being with our own discontent, being with it, right? So that we can trace it to its source, not immediately reaching out for something to satisfy, but being with that discontent. And it isn't easy, but the rewards are great. Thank you, Ravi. Robert, I've turned into a shut-in, debilitating anxiety when I leave my home, literally leave my home 4 to 5 hours a week. I know there's more to life in reality. I need help. My fears only exist in my head. Yes and no. We like to say that it's only all in the mind because the mind likes to think that because then it can beat you up because it's only in the mind. It's in the body. Anxiety isn't felt in the mind. Mind does not feel. It only thinks. It forms images. Anxiety is literally felt in the body. This reminds me of the combat veterans I worked with who had very severe PTSD. One in particular who would only go shopping. Well, none of them would do stuff during the day. They went out as little as possible. They'd go to work, come home. And if they had to go shopping or anything, they went in the middle of the night. They'd find a 24-hour place that was open. So they'd go in the middle of the night because they were it was the anxiety. They were afraid of what they were going to do. Something could set them off. And one guy in particular, he had not, it took a while. We worked on him for a long time, but little by little, even thinking about it would send him into fear. So I was using EFT. A non-dual inquiry would have been a waste of time on these guys. They were soldiers, right? Regular folks who had given their lives for their country. Most of them have been wounded, right? So I wasn't going to be sitting here, nothing's here. There is no world. It's all an illusion. We tapped, right? And it started with him just first he could actually think about it without panicking, right? So okay, get up, walk to the door like you're going to get in the car. Okay, now stop. Now we're going to do this. And this went on over a couple of weeks, right? And finally, the door, okay, put your jacket on. Okay, walk out to the car, right? No, just go back in the house, right? Now get in the car, right? And then it was in the car, and he pull out of the driveway, right? And at every point where he started hitting the anxiety, just back off. Just don't do it anymore. They're just going to tap. Just tap right there, right? Finally, he was driving by the place. And then he was in the parking lot in the back. And then he was in the parking lot and got out of the car. He actually walked to the front door and then walked back in. Finally, he walked in. And he told me, he said for the first time in 40 years, he went to a movie during the day. And I think it was him. I can't remember if it was him or some other guy. Was walking through a Walmart. And he was walking through the Walmart, tapping, right? And some guy, obviously also a soldier, walked by him and said, "Keep doing it, man. It works." So it isn't really in your head, right? It's in the body, right? So again, I've got some videos, I think, on anxiety. Like all of my tapping, I deal with it. You can join the Tappist monks. I've got a group that I meet with once a week, and we just tap on whatever comes up. There's some other stuff that's a part of it. It's very reasonably priced, at least it is for now, till I get enough people in there, and then the price will go up. So that's something you might want to look into as well. Just go to my site, robertgpwalsh.com. There's a whole bunch of things there. And as you can see, Mary, Robert, you have my prayers and support. Everybody does. Everybody feels this way. Everybody's with you. You are not alone, my friend. You are not alone. Okay. So thank you for coming here and showing up and being willing to ask a question. It means your anxiety's days are numbered. Dee Dee, what would the first steps to finding who you really are? Well, the first step is always beginning to see who you're not. First off, accepting the fact that you don't know who you are, right? And not knowing who you are, you have substituted a bunch of ideas as to who you thought you were. Now, you didn't consciously substitute them, by the way. Okay. Yeah, it's not like you're, okay, I'm going to substitute this. Who you are is simply, that state of being when you were a child where it was all new and magical and you didn't have concepts and ideas, and every feeling you had was, they were neither good nor bad. They're just, your pleasure was expressed, your displeasure was expressed, right? Pure being, pure self-expression, right? And then over time, with conditioning and experiences and all sorts of stuff come up, right? We develop a concept of ourselves, right? And then act out that concept. And that concept, of course, is tiny compared to the expansiveness that you actually are, right? But we got ourselves kind of stuck there. And so we have to start breaking it down. From this point of view of this egoic sense of self, this limited sense of self, right? This very small idea you have of yourself, we all have of ourselves, that was formed due to our experiences in childhood, right? That cannot know who you are. It can only exchange one concept for another, which is what self-improvement does and personal development, which is good, but eventually runs out of steam. So what is the first step? Well, the first step is recognize I'm not who I think I am. That's actually the first thing that Nisargadatta's guru told him. It says, you're not what you think you are. There was more after that. It was first, you are not who you think you are. Oh, okay. And you already know that intuitively, or you wouldn't ask the question, how do I find out who I really am? Now, at first, we always think that I'm going to find a different idea about myself. So we tend to kind of look for different ideas about ourselves, right? But you're not an idea. And you were there before there were any ideas whatsoever. So your real nature is pure experience. It's just pure experience. Okay, so it's not any new idea of myself that's going to tell me who I really am. Oh, wow, okay. That means every idea I have about myself, every time I say I am this or that, right? It's not true because it's just a thought. Then you can start just kind of like a meditation practice of just kind of beginning to draw your attention into the body, right? Which tends to draw our attention away from the mind and thinking. And you'll just notice that as I'm just kind of being with my breath or just feeling my body, that I can look at thoughts. A thought shows up. It doesn't think itself. I'm there, and it appears to me. Okay. And I see it when it's not there. I see it when it comes. I see it dance. And I see it when it goes. All those thoughts, they come and go. I'm not. What am I? What am I then? Okay. So none of these thoughts can really refer to me. They can only describe how I appear or how I've been experienced, or, more ideas about ideas. That's all it can tell me. It can't actually tell me who I am because I'm not a thought. Okay, so who am I then? And you can do the same thing with feelings. You can do the same thing with all of your senses and sensations. And you just come to this place where it is a not knowing that isn't ignorant. It's a not knowing that recognizes that none of this is me, right? But I'm still here. Okay, so I'm something, right? Who am I? Right? Does that help, Dee Dee? Does that give you kind of a place to go? A way to begin to approach it? Again, I have lots of meditations and exercises and stuff like this. Everything I do, I start with a meditation like that. Even if it's a class on energy healing or tapping or inner reconciliation, doing any kind of inner work, it always starts there. By just kind of withdrawing to this place where you are aware that you are perceiving, and that you, as the perceiver, are not what is being perceived. And right there is where that question, who am I, gets asked. Okay? And when you first ask it, the mind will start to answer. Well, you're this or that. And then it'll come up with psychological things. It'll come up with karmic things. It'll come out, well, this is your family and all this stuff happens, and your body, it'll describe your body. And then it'll come up with spiritual ideas and spiritual concepts. You go, well, all of those are thoughts. I'm looking at them. So I'm not them, and they're not describing me. Who am I? Does that do it for you, Dee Dee? Everybody, because actually that's a great question for everybody. Roberto, I can almost see my thoughts, GP. Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes. Yes, you can. You can see them everywhere. Ralph, Homo sapiens sapiens, the wisest of the wise. If we go extinct by self-destruction, engrave that on the gravestone of humanity. Greeting from Germany, not new. Silently watching for a year now. Ah, great. Yes, if we go extinct, self-destruction, nature will go, okay, well, we're not doing that again. I don't think we're going to be able to. No, we can't destroy life. Right? Destroy us. We can certainly change it, but there's more to it than just physical processing and physical functions. There's a mandate in the universe for life. So I don't think we're the only ones here. Dave, namaste to you. Grimace, growing pains, folks. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we're kind of all going through a universal puberty, which, if you remember junior high and high, whew, boy, I don't want to do that again. ME23, I literally don't have anyone. Very alone on this new path. Very narrow. This, yeah, I felt that. I had that experience, especially early on. It was just, yeah, nobody. I've had it numerous times in my life, being absolutely left alone once again. I mean, it happened 7 years ago when after a very difficult divorce and a business collapse, all sorts of horrible, unexpected things happened all at once, and I found myself completely alone. It's like, oh, okay, now what? Well, I went to India and hung out with my teacher for a month. And after a while, things came back. Like I said, I still live a very solitary life. I talk to students. I do sessions. I see my granddaughters and the like. Visit my grandson, occasionally because they live in Tempe. Do you feel alone? Do you feel lonely? There's a difference. Right? There's a profound aloneness that we all have to come to terms with. Right? We're afraid of it. Right? We have to come to terms with it. It's not the same as loneliness, right? Which is more of an emotional state. There's an existential state of aloneness, which is something we all have to experience more than once and come to terms with it. It's a recognition of the utter impermanence of everything, and that everything is going to fall away at some point. No exceptions. Everything you now know, it's like waking up from a dream, will be gone. that can leave a profound sense of aloneness, of solitariness. At first, it can be frightening. Right? One needs to be prepared for it. It is deep, and it has very deep feelings within us. Right? And right now, you have no one. So it's a mixture of this profound aloneness, and you don't have to stay there, right? It means, okay, I've got to be alone now. I'm going to go off to a cave. Nothing like that at all. You simply have to be present with it. And you'll begin to discern between the aloneness, which is just kind of where you come into life and where you go out of it, and the loneliness, which is kind of an emotional state, which will come and go. Right now, you don't have anyone. But as you just keep deepening this, saying, acknowledging it, yeah, boy, it'd be really nice to have somebody to hang out with, right? It'd be really nice to have a lover or a good friend or family or something, right? It would be nice. Just be okay with that. That's quite fine. It's natural to human beings to feel that. And I don't have that right now. Okay, so I can be absolutely present with that, right? And a kind of a trust begins to emerge that says, well, okay, maybe there's something really deep to learn here. Maybe this is what's necessary for me to really deepen my spiritual understanding to the point where I am self-verified and self-sufficient, so that when I am with people, there's no neediness there. It's a genuine, authentic exchange. It is genuine intimacy because I'm fully there. So you can see it is a blessing. It can be. It's all a matter of how we use it. It can be horrible, torturous, or it can be an open door to a deeper level of understanding. But know this, it's not forever. Right? Nothing is. Right? Loneliness, and you can be alone in a crowd, right? You can feel lonely with a partner. Right? I did. So it isn't actually that proximity that makes it either. It's the quality of the intimacy, and the quality of our potential for intimacy with others is directly proportionate with how intimate we've become with ourselves. Intimate meaning, I am with myself. I allow myself to feel what I'm feeling. I don't reject my own feelings. I accept myself as I am, and that's the beautiful process. Thank you, me. 23. Mary says, this is the Kali Yuga of the Iron Age. Yes, the Kali Yuga, which according to the Hindu scriptures that talk about the Kali Yuga, it is mercifully short. In fact, we are actually hitting the end. There were cycles of, it was divinity, which was like thousands of years, and then kept getting shorter and shorter. This one is 500 years, and we're actually at the end of the 500 years. And during the Kali Yuga, it is going to look like evil and the forces of darkness win. But of course they can't, because they can only survive in the dark. And the moment you turn on the light, you don't have to suck the dark out of a room. So, existential dread. What is the 12,000 year cycle all about? This is new to me. I will admit that I'm skeptical about this. It does seem to have run in a 12,000 year cycle. There's some mystical and some stuff around these kinds of cycles, 12,000, 6,000, corresponding to the axis of the earth, which is like 26,000 years. But basically what I'm referring to is the way of life human beings adopted when we left the hunter-gatherer stage and went into agriculture. When we went to agriculture, a completely different way of interacting with specialization, hierarchies emerged. We became very stationary, right? Suddenly, land became something to be possessed. The whole idea of possessions and wealth started there, right? There was no such thing when I'm a hunter-gatherer. My wealth was the wealth of the world around me. There was no sense of having more than I actually needed. And I was grateful for the bounding. But now we can store food. It can get more complex. We developed money. We had different kinds of religions involved. We made cities because people started working together on stuff, and the farms were outside, and it was commerce. And so there was this whole cycle that the human consciousness developed through, and it became increasingly and increasingly complex. And out of that did emerge different structures, and different kinds of hierarchies, different economic systems, and that was a complete shift from what was before it, which was the hunter-gatherers. Right? And so what I see happening is that shift that took place, right, that agriculture started, right, is now coming to its conclusion, right? It's gone as far as it's gone, and if it continues, it will destroy the planet. It's the same basic thing that has just developed over time and headed off in a trajectory that we now see as like self-destructive. Right? So that's the 12,000 year cycle I'm referring to. It does have some import in other things. I mean, the like 12 to 13,000 years. There's stuff that happens because there's a shift, and it was 26,000 years on the Mayan calendar, right? So I don't know about any of that. All I can see is that the state of mind, the state of relationship, the way we organize and stuff started then and has reached a point where it's either going to completely implode, and something else is going to happen. The question is, when it implodes, how much of the world's going to take with it? So that's what I'm referring to. It's not something mystical or special. It's just my own observation that we have hit the inevitable consequences of what got put in place 12,000 years ago. It was inevitable that this was going to end up like this. The various kinds of states of mind and stuff that happened up until the 20th century, which was a century of war. As far as I last understood, at any given time on the planet, there are 40 wars going on somewhere on the planet all the time. I mean, this is the culmination of possessions, of wealth, of structure, of the protection of my property. It's inevitable that it's going to lead to that, right? The more resources get scarce, the concept of ownership, we do war. It's never about noble purposes. It's about stealing. It's about taking resources. It's always what it is. So that's really what that's what I'm referring to. Existential dread. Awake, not woke. Love that name. I have found that practicing tapping has opened the gate of my unconscious, and memories are flooding my consciousness. And at night, I'm dreaming of people I haven't seen in decades. Yes, what it does, the reason I use it is because it communicates you are safe, the message you are safe through touch. And in so doing, it bypasses the mind, right? Because if I say you're safe, right? You go, no, I'm not. And the mind will give you all the reasons why you're not. But if I do this, the same message, but it goes right into the body and it feels it. So even though there's all this stuff going on and the mind's doing its thing, it's getting this other information in. And remember, the body misses nothing, right? Nothing. It senses the tiniest little shift in the environment. Okay? And so that's what happens. And if you persist in this, and of course, there's a practice you can use, and the way I do it to work with people, you can enhance that. But just the tapping itself will do it. And if you persist with it, it begins to regard this new message of safety as consistent, right? Which means now the environment it knew it was in before, it now goes like this. Oh, okay. I'm in a different environment now. My energetic assumption has shifted. My map of reality has changed, and it will respond to it. And when that happens, what it means is defenses have started to come down, and all sorts of stuff, traumas and wounds, and all sorts of past lives, all sorts of things can start coming to the surface. The good news is that it comes up gently. It won't overwhelm you. But it can be very surprising. I've seen some really extraordinary things come out of that. But the tapping, the way I do it, I use it as a means. It isn't purely therapeutic, although like was working with the combat veterans, right? It was purely therapeutic. I just did it therapeutically. It wasn't about transformation or inner world. It was about just helping these guys get their lives back, right? But eventually, with others, who are not so severely, yeah, well, all are to a certain degree. So it starts out being therapeutic, being able to release a lot of that stuff. But what it really is about, what I'm driving at, and what is embodied in the way I do it, is this understanding that the real you has never been touched. We are creating the environment for the nervous system begin to get the message that it's safe. And the more it does that, it lets the real you come out because it's safe to do so, right? It's hiding. It's literally protecting the real you because it wasn't safe to be yourself. That's what all that stuff was. And as the environment is it now, okay, it's safe. Oh, it's safe. Okay. You'll find all sorts of things coming up. At first, it'll be a lot of wounds, and there'll be memories and difficult stuff, but eventually it'll be new powers, new abilities, things you didn't know you could do. I had no idea I could do that. Right? It will begin to release your gifts into the world, right? And you'll be more you, which of course means everything in your life's better. So thank you, Awake Not Woke. Very good report. Mary Sykes, they say that after this we start again a golden age. GP, I know what you speak of as being needed. My son finally married and I'm experiencing empty nest and not being needed as you described about yourself. But the other day, a stray cat came into my life and I adopted him. He's my meditation cat. I love him. Yes, if I ever get someplace and I realize I'm going to stay there, a place that I say, okay, I think this is where I'm going to live out the duration, I will definitely have some critters around. They're just amazing. They're just amazing. Mary, yes, I have a cat like that. Running out of options, yes. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. So yeah, I managed to keep these two plants alive for almost 2 months now. So I gave myself permission, and I actually got another one, and there's another one over there, and some bamboo. I said, okay, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can take care of it. But yeah, if I ever have a place, just a place that really is, then I'm going to be there for the duration. There'll be critters around for sure. Jennifer, yes, this compassionate love is where I speak from to his inner child. He says, I speak in puzzles. Thank you. I'll speak from another level. I've worked on my responses and not going ego to ego, just be. Well, that's all you can do, and that's all you have to do. Just don't ego for ego, because that's what happens. It gets triggered. I speak in puzzles. I'm sorry. Maybe there's another way I can explain myself. Just, yeah. It is always the higher has to, it's up to the higher to speak to the lower. You can't expect it to speak to you, right? You can't expect the lower ear. Wow, what are you talking about, right? But you can, oh, okay, I got to go down here. All right, fine, I'll go down there. Love is quite capable of playing in the mud. I mean, Christ was criticized because he hung out with the drunks and the prostitutes. It's like way more fun, I'm sure. Teresa says, me 23, it seems like we're alone. I get it, experience the same, though realize that it's important to get involved with positive things, like Buddhism, for example. Yeah, yes, it is. Yes, don't, it's not a way of life. These are feelings that go through us, right? And recognize they are going to go through us, and sometimes they're going to linger, right? But none of these things are a way of life. Right? None of these things are a life sentence. Right? Everything comes and goes. Everything comes and goes. Sometimes things get stuck there, right? But they only get stuck. If something gets stuck, it simply means we double down on our creating inner safety for ourselves. We make ourselves even safer for ourselves. Mary, running out of options. This cat came from nowhere, and my home is the only home he would come into, as I found out from neighbors. I fall into a lovely meditation with him all the time. Yeah, he's your guru. Yeah. Buddha has come to your house. Love. Isn't that something? Yes, yes. Wooter, hello, G. My girlfriend has the feeling, trauma, of feeling insecure, unsafe. What can I do to help her? It seems no love suffices. Well, the love you have for her, of course, is protective. It does make a difference. Don't doubt that, right? But it's not enough, because she's got to come to terms with, and I say this very gently, with the source of the trauma, with the source of the lack of safety. And the source of lack of safety and the feeling of insecurity was because when she was a kid, she was not safe. Her parents were not safe. They did not honor her. They did not acknowledge her. They did not, maybe they didn't even see her. And it could have been a diminishment. It could have just been something in the atmosphere. It could have been downright abuse. It could be things she can't even remember. And some of these things can come from past lives, but I don't go into that until it comes up. If I'm working with somebody and we're working through it in whatever form, and I use tapping a lot for trauma work, which is where most of this has to start. Then the stuff has got the freedom to come up. We find out where it's actually coming from, and at the same time, it becomes now a feeling, a state, an energetic state in the body, and not a character flaw, not a personal problem. It's not something you did wrong or something that you're going to be in trouble for. That's what happened in the past. It's not a character flaw. It is an energetic pattern that got put into place, and just recognize that you're not broken opens a door, right? Now comes the process of what I call the yoga of allowing, of being present, of using tapping and other techniques to begin to open up the energy system so it can see for itself it is no longer in that unsafe environment. And this is a healing process. It's a healing modality that I've developed over decades, right? And it works. And it works. And I just really love the fact that you love her so much that you're bringing it. You're looking for a solution for her. That love is powerful. That love is powerful. You can work on this stuff together. A relationship where you are both engaged in it from the point of view of being a safe space for each other is one of the most profound and powerful environment. That's why we have relationships, as far as I'm concerned. Besides the fact that they're great and they're fun and it's pleasurable and all of that sort of stuff, it's really there to give you a vestibule in which you can go free, become free. You can create between yourselves the environment that you didn't get as kids. You can make that safe environment, right? And boy, what a power that is when you can do that with somebody. We have to learn how to do it for ourselves. Of course, otherwise we won't be able to do it with anybody, but you can learn how to do it together, which is quite beautiful. So again, these are the kind of things, it's still cheap to get into my Tappist monks program. It's still cheap. It's not going to be for much longer. I can't maintain it at this level. I have a bunch of people in it, but it is a constant exposure, right? I meet live once a week. I do my Monday transmission. I answer questions. I give them priority in the questions. There's a group of people that you can work with, and it creates the sense of a sangha, of belonging, and it's a place where you can bring these kinds of things and work with me. It's a lot less expensive than having done a private session with me. But I do all sorts of courses. I've got another course coming up that we're planning on doing now about scarcity and abundance and the freedom of fear of lack. So thanks, Wooter, and give my love to your girlfriend. Robert, I don't know how I wound up here, but I'm finally hearing something that makes sense to me. I need this today. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. I don't know exactly the how and how you wound up here, but I certainly know the why. Right? It's because your heart wants to open, right? And it's looking for a safe place, right? And this is what this is, right? When I talk about creating the inner safety, I've been doing it for myself for years and years and years. And so I do it for others. I create a safe space. That's what I do. And I teach other people how to do it. First with yourselves and then for others. If you create the safe space, the hearts of others will find it, right? Because it's what we're looking for. We're all looking for that place where it's simply safe to be yourself. Existential dread. Is the 12,000 year cycle the same as the Yuga cycle? I read that these are divine years and are not the same as our usual years. Yeah, 4,320,000. Is that right? Baffling. I don't know. Yeah, I say yes and I say no. The Yuga cycles, as I know them, they're very long and they're not 12,000. They're not all the same. They get shorter as it gets to the Kali Yuga, the last one. But again, that's a Hindu view of things. It's not important, right? Like I said, I knew about those things and I heard about the end of days and, what's the signs of the end of the world. And I interpreted them mythologically. I did not interpret them. I saw that sages throughout all time, because they perceived the nature of the egoic mind by becoming liberated from it, they could see the cycles that it was going to go through and what would happen to humanity as a whole. And having that to guide me, plus my own understanding and my own research that I've done, things that I've learned looking back, I see, it's playing itself out. So is it a strict 12,000? Heavens, no. Obviously, it's not strict 12,000 years. There's nothing. There's no divine imperative. This is a natural cycle of energetic growth that's going on. It's not like there's something being imposed from the outside. It's being witnessed from the inside. So it's, you don't need to be baffled. It's not important. I only pointed it out because it's been 12,000 years, about 12,000 years since we started moving into agriculture, which created a completely different culture, which created different technologies, different interrelationships, different families, different everything, right? And I just kind of see it on its last legs. So don't worry about any of the numbers and all that. They're not important. And running out of options, almost exactly with her cat. Yes, very good, very good. Faith. Faith. I'm chic and everyone. I have not found a job yet. Any tips? Honestly, I'm confused about. I need to apply to have more chance, and between things happen without a reason. Since I find myself blaming myself for not applying enough, and at the same time for many days crying and pushing myself to apply and crying in front of my laptop. Oh, and many days I cannot send one application. I love you too, Jaime. Oh, wow. Well, it is always my love. It's both, right? I need to apply to have more chance, and things just happen without a reason. Well, so does applying. If things happen without a reason, then applying for a job happens without a reason, right? And just make the effort. You could even do it like, if you're going to be in a job, you're going to be in a job for 8 hours a day, right? Okay, so your job for 8 hours a day is to look for work. There's your job. And at the end of the day, what do you do after work? You go out and have a beer with your buddies, or that's it. You're done, right? And then let it go, right? And even take breaks. During the day, you take a break, you take a lunch break, and that sort of thing. But so don't bring some order and structure to it, and then let it go. We don't want to turn this into a philosophical thing, between the massive action, take massive action, or the law of attraction. It's all just going to come for me, or none of it happens. It's all just happening by itself. Just throw all of that out. Completely useless. Just bring some structure. If the tears come, it's like, God, this is frustrating. Yeah, it's okay. Be frustrated. Yes, of course. For the last year, I've tried a lot of things in the business, and most of them haven't worked. I've kind of gone, okay, all right. All right, now what? Yeah, we don't want to just be a philosophy. Well, it's all just happening. It's all in God's time. Unless you really feel that in your heart, in which case there'll be just this happiness and joy, and there won't be any kind of heavy overhead in it. So take off all of the overhead, all the stuff you lay on top of your stuff, on top of your self-love, and just right now that is your job. You're self-employed to get a job. That's your job, right? And just treat it like that, right? It's not your whole life. Right? Give yourself breaks. Take it easy, right? And put aside all of the philosophical stuff. Don't try to reason it out, but just instead just cultivate that loving heart that loves you, right? The way God loves you, the way Allah loves you, right? Because you are the very manifestation of that God, right? And God loves looking at herself in the mirror. Oh, I am so beautiful. I am so amazing. Wow. And how God looks at herself in the mirror, she is you. You're the reflection of the mirror. You couldn't be more loved or lovable. Hope that helps, my sweet. Todd. Hello, Todd. Todd Sloan. Allowing your feelings to be observed is the best thing, instead of unaware on your unconscious potential and ending up stuck in resistance to everything and cursing everybody. Yes. Yes, that's true. When my wife was dying of cancer, I told her that she will experience hurt yourself, and she was confident that she will experience hurt yourself, and she was confident. I quite understand the way you said that, Tom, but she was confident. Yes, you allowed her to be fully present with what was happening. And when we are present, the fear is less, sometimes gone. The suffering is less and sometimes just gone. There's an equanimity even in the midst of pain and even in the midst of facing our own death. You know, at my age, unless I live to be 140, I'm a lot closer to the end than the beginning. And so, because I don't have the same responsibilities for family and like, I ponder that. I've done some Buddhist meditations on death, which are really meditations on impermanence. And it's very powerful. It's very, very powerful to just really be 100% present with our own inevitable demise. We don't know how it's going to happen, right? At some point, something's going to malfunction and take everything with it. It's going to happen. And there's no, one of the beautiful things about Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism, is the preparation for it, right? We should prepare for it. It's part of it. And it actually makes life more valuable, more precious, more dear, right? Because we know it's impermanent and that we're dying every moment. Anyway, yes, being present with your feelings, whatever they are, and cultivating the capacity to be with them when they're very uncomfortable is the most noble and powerful thing you can do. It will make self-inquiry and the walk to Buddhahood easy. Thank you, Todd. Mary, GP, I feel like you're a slot machine and I keep hitting the check. Your satsangs are superb. Thank you. You keep hitting the jackpot. That's good. Sean had an unexpected awakening in the spring, suffering immediately at 55 in resistances. One would have lived my life so differently if one had lived in love, alone, and feeling immense grief. Wow. Yes. Feel that grief. Really let yourself feel that grief. Let yourself feel the loss of what our delusions about who we are have cost us. And it's not just this life, buddy. It's not just 55 years. It is lifetimes. Thousands of lifetimes. Countless, beginningless lifetimes. That we have lived as a limited self, not as who we really are. So grieve it. It's okay. It's okay. Right? But know that grief is temporary and that everything that has happened in every single life that led up to that moment of awakening was absolutely necessary. The grief will pass. The awakening will not. A wisdom will emerge in you. It will be so loving and compassionate, as well as precisely wise. Right? And truthfully, it can only be gotten this way. To truly see what we have lost, what it has cost us. That's real wisdom. So grieve. Let yourself feel it. Mourn the life you could have had. Right? But you couldn't have had that. You had to have had the life you did in order to have this. Ultimately, you'll see it was worth it. My heart is with you, Sean. Lassius, thank you. Beautiful. Welcome. Let go of the urge to fix things, except fix the urge to fix. Yeah. Fix the urge to fix. Yes. There we go. Nothing is impermanent. Nothing is permanent except the fact that there's nothing permanent. The only thing that's permanent is impermanence. Amazing. David, GP, I work midnights and never want to do anything in the day and thought I was nuts until you talked about those soldiers. Yeah, no, you're not nuts. You're not nuts, my friend. Far from it. You know, you're going sane. Robert, thank you, GP. I appreciate your help. You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Yeah. There is, you've suffered enough, my friend. There's no need. There's no need. Dee Dee, yes, thank you. Well, great, great. G, when you're doing something, does your mind still interfere with thoughts of procrastination and how difficult it is? Because there's still some toxic thought that have a grip over me. I mean, I don't know how to put it another way because I obviously see what's going. Sometimes the constant thought activity is tiring. Yeah, it is. It is tiring. And my mind is not always just this clear blue sky. There's stuff going on and ideas are coming, and you know, I'm engaged in life. I've got stuff going on. It's the relationship with it, right? So when you say that the thought is tiring, the thoughts are not tiring. The fact that you don't want the thoughts is what tires you. That somehow they have to shut up. Shut the fuck up and go away, right? Even on a subtle level, that's where the tiring is. Otherwise, the thoughts just come and go. And so what, right? There's the thought of procrastination, right? And then something gets, oh, am I procrastinating? Should I be procrastinating? If you notice that, you go, oh, there it is again. There's just doing its thing. Just doing its thing, right? And even the thought, it's tiring, is a thought. What if that thought never occurred to you? Would it be tiring? No, there'd just be stuff going on. Whenever stuff is like that, notice that there's a subtle resistance to it. And that's where all the energy gets sucked. That's what's tiring. That subtle resistance that just wants it to be different than it is. Boy, do we, oh God, no, please take it away. Let's see. Kingdale Clark. Oh my goodness. Oh God, I got a whole ton of stuff here. Bless you, such kindness. Bless you all. Oh, be kind to yourselves. Yes, closer to cats than humans. Again, G. Thank you, David and Elaine. Thank you. There's Susanna. Thank you, G. Yes, exactly that. What you said is happening. Actually, joyous. Very good. All right. So this will be the last. Oh, boy, he's got it far. Okay, let me see if I can sum it down here. Kingdale Clark. GP, how are you? Very good. Thank you. What can you say about criminals from a non-duality perspective? Is there no free will? Nisargadatta Maharaj once said something along the lines of whatever you perceive isn't you nor yours. I think that's a good ultimate pointer. Yes, exactly so. It can take some practice with it, but yes, it is. If you realize that it isn't, then no thought, no feeling, no sensation, no memory, nothing is. And you'll see, if you really take that in, right, you'll see how we have so consistently identified with thought, feeling, emotions, and sensations, that we constantly doing it, right? And then you recognize that whatever is perceiving it isn't any of those things, and the question now comes, okay, well then who am I? Well, I'm obviously the one that's perceiving. So who am I? What am I? Right? If I'm not any of that, right? So yes, it is a very powerful pointer, and for some it is the ultimate pointer. Can the perceiver be perceived? It's the way Muji puts it. Can the perceiver be perceived? Well then, if not, how do you know you are? It's a different way of knowing. Criminals from a non-duality perspective, the criminal is you were conditioned to be one way, right? The criminal was just conditioned differently. The rich person is conditioned. The one who has easy success is conditioning, right? Who seeks wealth or gets really, really wealthy. Conditioning, right? It's all conditioning. That's all there is to it. It is all conditioning. And no matter what form the conditioning takes, however ugly and gross or criminal it is, or the most ugly and gross greedy it is, or even the most saintly and moral it is all conditioning. And none of it has actually touched the reality of who you are or who they are. And if they can't see it for themselves, well, my job is to see it for them, right? And the more I see it in me, the more I see it in others. Simple as that. Forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing. And that's really the perspective it takes. Now, it doesn't deny the fact that sometimes a criminal, because of that conditioning, we don't need to protect ourselves from it. We do, right? And sometimes they do need to be locked up, right? But they don't need to be locked up. I completely disagree with the U.S. system, which is totally punitive, right? Totally punitive, and that's why it works so terribly. There are other systems in other parts of the world where they have almost zero recidivism. They actually love them, take care of. They recognize conditioning, and these are problems, and they're systemic. They come from the environment they're in, and they teach them how to be. They give them self-respect, and they don't go back to it. They don't go back to it. So we can approach it with love and wisdom, because if somebody is conditioned to the point where they're truly dangerous, well, they need to be taken out so they don't hurt anybody and themselves. So that's really the perspective. The non-dual part of it is that I know for a fact that inside of them is the original innocence that has never been touched, and it can be reawakened, and that is the ultimate forgiveness. So that the criminal ceases to exist because it was simply a state of conditioning and not their reality. And so it resolves the whole free will, predestination, all that sort of stuff. There's no free will in conditioning. Free will only comes from the freedom from conditioning. That is, choice only comes from there. But even then, if it's not my conditioning, I'm seeing myself as I really am. It's not even free will. I'm just acting. I'm just being myself. Where's the free will? It's not a choice. It's just what I am. So that kind of puts the whole free will thing to rest. And you speak about this aloneness, really know this feeling that can be painful, right? Yeah, almost a feeling inside your gut. But I believe that aloneness is who we really are, alone with everything. Nothing appearing is everything. Yes, but that's not an emotional state. That aloneness is bliss, because it's a oneness with all things. It isn't aloneness because there's nobody else to be alone. It doesn't compute. It's an irrelevant concept. There is no aloneness. There's just only myself. So take it even further. Yes, the aloneness is the oneness, is the singularity of the self. It is that which is beyond space and time. And it is you. That is me. But that it is not alone in any sense that we would normally know it. And its nature being infinitely vast and inexhaustible, it sees itself in the mirror of the universe, and it loves what it sees. All right. On that note, I am just going to say I love you all. Thank you for all the thank yous. Thank you. Bless you, such kindness. Okay, thank you all. Oh, wonderful. And I do have a Patreon account and a buymeacoffee.com account. If people want to be able to help me offset the costs for this, it is it is very, very, very appreciated and makes a huge difference. So thank you all. I will see you next week, or if you're my Tapas monks, I'll see you on Wednesday. Until then, namaste, everybody.